The first light of dawn spilled softly over the treetops, turning the forest into a canvas of muted gold. The air, still cool and damp, carried the rich scent of pine and damp earth. Officer Emily Carter attached her badge to her uniform and stepped onto the narrow trail, her boots crunching quietly against the gravel. Morning patrols were her peaceful retreat, the rare moment when the town still slept, and the world felt untouched by the rush of daily life. She knew these woods like the back of her hand. The old logging road wound along the edge of town, a quiet stretch where nothing ever really happened. No calls for backup, no sirens blaring, just her, the towering trees, and the occasional deer slipping silently through the morning mist. Emily breathed deeply, feeling the calmness of the morning settle over her. Another routine shift, she thought, but something in the air felt different today. A strange weight hung over the morning, an inexplicable sense that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. She slowed her pace, her eyes scanning the silent woods. Nothing, but that prickling sensation remained. Shaking it off, she adjusted her radio and continued down the path, her footsteps the only sound in the otherwise quiet forest. Then she heard it. A sound so faint it could have been imagined. A soft rustling behind her, like tiny paws brushing through leaves. Emily froze, turning slowly to see what had caused the sound. Out from the shadows stepped a small German shepherd puppy, no bigger than a loaf of bread. His ears were far too large for his head, and his wide, terrified eyes locked onto hers. His tiny tail trembled between fear and hope. Emily's breath caught in her chest. She crouched down slowly, her knees brushing against the cool, damp earth as she lowered herself to the puppy's level. "Hey there, little guy," she murmured, her voice barely above the whisper of the wind through the trees. The pup didn't run. Instead, he stood frozen, his small chest rising and falling rapidly as if unsure of what to do. Emily extended her hand, palm open and steady, letting it hover just above the forest floor. Her movements were slow, soft, almost reverent, as she gave the little creature the space he needed. The pup's oversized head tilted slightly, one ear twitching nervously, while the other stood straight as a flag. His dark eyes darted from her hand to her face, and back again, his gaze full of questions, full of hesitation, for a brief moment. His tiny paws stayed rooted to the spot, claws digging into the soft earth as if the ground itself could anchor his fear. Then, with a tremble, he shifted his weight forward. One small paw lifted, hovered for a moment, then pressed down onto the gravel with a faint crunch. He hesitated, testing the ground, testing her. Another step followed, slower, more deliberate. His whole body was taut, like a coiled spring, ready to retreat at the slightest misstep. Emily held her breath, her body perfectly still as the gap between them closed. Now only a few inches apart, the pup froze again. His nose twitched, pulling in the scent of leather, soap, and human warmth. For a brief second, his ears relaxed, his body leaning just slightly toward her outstretched hand. But then, as quickly as it had appeared, that fleeting moment of trust vanished. His muscles tensed again, as if a quiet voice whispered inside him, "Careful, not yet." Emily's heart raced as she whispered, her gaze locked with his. "You're not lost, are you?" There was something raw in his eyes, a deep need, beyond hunger or loneliness, something desperate and real. Emily stayed crouched for a moment longer, her hand still hovering near the pup. His little body trembled, and though his paws itched forward, he never closed the distance between them. In his eyes, Emily saw it, the flicker of hope tangled with fear, as if he was on the verge of making a choice far bigger than his tiny frame. Finally, Emily lowered her hand and stood up, giving him space. The movement made the puppy flinch, but he didn't run. Instead, he shuffled a step closer, his nose quivering as he took in her scent. Emily took a slow step backward along the trail, and the pup's reaction was instant. Tiny claws scraped softly against the gravel as he followed her, keeping the same fragile distance. She stopped. He stopped. She shifted to the side. He mirrored her. Neither of them broke eye contact. "This isn't random," Emily whispered to herself. Her instincts, honed over years of unpredictable situations, told her the truth. This pup wasn't wandering. He was choosing. Deciding to test her intuition, Emily crouched down again, her voice barely more than a breath, carried by the cool morning air. "What's going on, little guy?" Her words seemed to hang in the silence of the forest. The puppy's ears shot up, his body trembling, but now, for the first time, his eyes softened not with fear, but with recognition. A soft whimper escaped him, fragile and raw, unlike any sound she'd heard before. It wasn't a cry of confusion. It was a plea, a fragile whisper of something deeper. And with a sudden, trembling breath that almost seemed like courage, he pivoted on his small paws and stepped off the trail. His tiny body shook with uncertainty, but there was something new in the way he moved, a new determination, a new trust. He pushed through the first layer of brush, pausing just long enough to glance over his shoulder, his eyes locking onto hers. It was as if he was saying, "Please, come with me." Emily's breath caught. Her heart pounded in her chest, but there was no turning back now. She rose slowly, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on her. The pup stopped just a pup, stopped just a pup, stopped just a fatumbatumna. Few paces ahead, turning to face her. For a single moment, the forest disappeared, and all Emily could see was that small, quivering figure. She took a steadying breath, her fingers brushing against the cool metal of her badge, grounding herself. The little German shepherd waited, half hidden in the underbrush, his body still trembling, but his gaze unwavering. "All right," she whispered, her voice low but firm. "I'm coming with you." Stepping off the worn path felt like crossing an invisible line. The forest floor shifted under her boots, soft earth replacing the gravel's familiar crunch. Branches brushed against her uniform as she made her way through the tangled greenery. The air here was thicker, filled with the scent of moss and pine. The puppy darted ahead, moving quickly but not frantically. Every few steps he stopped, checking to make sure she was following. Emily noticed the certainty in his path. This wasn't aimless wandering. He knew exactly where he was going. As they ventured deeper into the woods, the sounds of the waking forest faded, replaced by the soft rustle of leaves beneath their feet. Emily's heartbeat quickened, matching the quiet urgency in the pup's steps. Each turn, each dip in the ground felt deliberate, like following a map written in paw prints. Suddenly, a branch caught her boot, forcing her to catch herself on a low limb. She steadied her breath, the weight of the moment settling deeper with every step. The puppy paused, glancing back at her, his dark eyes locking with hers. Emily swallowed hard, lowering her voice to a near whisper. "Whatever it is, we'll find it." Without slowing, the pup continued onward. A minute later, he stopped in front of a massive fallen log. His small body stiffened, tail dropping low. He let out a single sharp bark, not playful, not curious, but commanding. Emily's chest tightened. Whatever had brought him here was just beyond that log. She circled the fallen tree, boots sinking slightly into the soft earth as she moved. The morning light barely touched this part of the forest, leaving the ground cloaked in muted shadows. For a moment, all she saw was a tangle of branches and damp leaves. Then, she spotted something a shape lying in the hollow between the roots. Her breath hitched. It was another German shepherd, older. Her body curled inward, as if trying to disappear into the earth. Her fur, once thick and proud, was matted with dried blood and dirt. One hind leg was twisted at an unnatural angle. and faint scratches marked her sides. Emily dropped to her knees without thinking. The puppy darted forward, his tiny body pressing gently against the larger dog's neck. He nudged her repeatedly, a soft, desperate whine escaping him. Emily's hand hovered in the air, her breath caught in her throat. The world around her shrank to the faint rise and fall of a broken body and the little pup who refused to let go. Training kicked in as she gently placed 2 fingers on the dog's chest, silently begging for a sign. A pause. Then a faint, weak heartbeat. Barely. There, but there. "Oh, sweetheart," Emily whispered, her voice breaking. The pup's sound small and raw echoed in the quiet woods. It wasn't fear. It wasn't a bark. It was relief. He looked up at Emily, his small face covered in dirt. And in that moment, she understood. He hadn't been lost. He hadn't been wandering. He had been holding on to hope, carrying a mission his tiny legs could barely manage. He hadn't been searching for help for himself. He'd been trying to save his mother. Emily unclipped her radio, her hands trembling. "Dispatch, this is Officer Carter. I've got 2 canines in the north sector near mile marker 7. 1 adult female, critical condition, and 1 juvenile, unharmed but traumatized. Requesting immediate veterinary response and backup for extraction." Static crackled for a moment before a calm voice confirmed help was on the way. Emily exhaled shakily and set the radio down. She turned back to the pair, her knees sinking into the damp soil. Fielder dog lay motionless except for the faint rise and fall of her chest. Thepapi never left her side, his tiny frame pressed against her as if his Bodioloni could keep her alive. "Hey, little one," Emily whispered, reaching out slowly. Her hand settled gently along his back. The pup stiffened for a breath, then leaned into her touch, his trembling easing just slightly. How long had he been out here? How many nights had he spent circling this spot, waiting for someone, anyone, to listen? The thought made Emily's throat tighten. "You did good," she murmured, her voice soft but steady. The pup blinked up at her with eyes far too knowing for his eyes. For the first time, his body seemed to sag against her leg as if fuied of his mission had finally been lifted. His breathing slowed, tin exhales warm against her uniform. Emily glanced between the battered mother and her brave little guardian. This wasn't just survival. This was love in its purest, most desperate form. The faint wail of a siren broke through the trees minutes later, low and muted under the canopy. Emily stood just long enough to wave the team toward her location. 2 animal rescue officers and a mobile vet unit navigated the uneven ground, their faces tightening when they saw Thessini. "She's still alive," Emily said quickly, stepping back, but keeping a hand on the puppy to reassure him. "Critical, but there's a heartbeat." The vet knelt beside the injured German shepherd. "Her movements calm but urgent. We'll stabilize her here before moving. Keep the pup close. He's bonded." As they worked, the little dog's world seemed vulnerable. The moment they lifted his mother onto the stretcher, he let out a sharp, panicked yelp, his tiny body lunging forward. Emily caught him at step, scooping him into her arms. He struggled for a breath, then froze as held him tight to her chest. "She's going to be okay," Emily whispered, her voice low and certain, even though part of her wasn't sure. "You did your part. Let them do theirs." The puppy's frantic trembling eased ever so slightly, his head tucking under her chin as if clinging to her promise. By the time they reached the mobile unit, the older dog had been given fluids and pain medication. Her breathing steadied, though it was still shallow. At the clinic later that afternoon, the staff moved quickly. X-rays, emergency surgery, whispered updates. Emily stayed in the corner with the pup curled in her lap, his eyes never leaving the doors that hid his mother. They named her Luna, and the brave little shadow who saved her, They called him Rex. Days turned into weeks inside the quiet walls off the veterinary clinic. Emily visit after every shift, still in uniform, the faint smell of pine and patrol lingering in her jacket. Every time the door cracked open, Rex would bolt from his corner, tail wagging in frantic bursts of recognition. Luna, though weak, always seemed to know when Emily arrived. Her head would lift just slightly, her tired eyes softening at sight of the woman who had carried them from the forest. Emily spent horse-sitting on the cool tile floor, one hand resting on Luna's side while Rex curled up in her lap. The bond between mother and pup was unshakable. Rex never left her side, sleeping against her, nudging her gently whenever her breathing hitched in pain. One quiet afternoon, Emily watched as Rex crawled beside his mother and pressed his tinny nose against her muzzle. He paused there for a moment, then lifted his gaze to Emily, his eyes saying what words couldn't. She's coming back. Something cracked open inside her. Emily had rescued animals before, responded to countless calls, but this was different. She wasn't just watching survival. She was witnessing a family fight its way back to life, held together by love stronger than fear. Driving back to her empty cabin that evening, Emily's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than usual. The silence inside the car felt heavier than Pfefferus that day. By the time she pulled into her driveway, the decision had already taken root. She didn't want to let them go. No, more than that, Shackleton. They belong with me, she whispered to herself, the words both a promise and a realization. The adoption papers were signed with little ceremony, but carried the weight of something life-changing. Within days, Emily walked out of the clinic with Luna and Rex at her side. Luna moved carefully, her injured leg wrapped and supported, while Rex bounced around her with the kind of energy only a puppy could have, never straying far from his mother's side. Their new home was a quiet cabin just outside town where the scent of pinna drifted through open windows and birdsong greeted the mornings. Rex explored every corner as if mapping out their new world, darting after falling leaves and barking at the first squirrel bold enough to approach the yard. Luna, still moving with a gentle limp, would settle herself under the shade of a tree, eyes always tracking her son's every move. Emily stood in the doorway that first evening, watching them. The cabin had always been a place of solitude, a placebo retreat after long shifts. Now it felt different, alive. When she stepped inside, Rex bounded toward her, tail wagging so hard his whole body swayed. Luna followed more slowly, resting her head against Emily's boot with a soft sigh. The weight of it, the trust, hit her harder than she expected. People often said animals find the humans they need. Emily believed Phaetons, but looking at Luna and Rex, she realized the truth ran deeper. Sometimes they don't just find you. Sometimes they lead you to the love you didn't know you were missing. That night, as the forest outside whispered in the wind, Emily sat on the floor with both of them pressed against her. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel alone.